Former Portuguese Prime Minister António Guterres is to become the next UN Secretary General, replacing Ban Ki-moon once his term ends. Guterres served as the head of the United Nations Refugee Agency for 10 years between 2005 and 2015. He was the 114th Prime Minister of Portugal between 1995 and 2002. On February 29, 2016, he was submitted as Portugal's candidate for the UN Secretary General, and he won. So he is going to become the next Secretary General. What's interesting is his focus, and what his focus has been over the last between 2005 and 2015. He was the head of the UN Refugee Agency. And when you consider the role that the UN is playing, particularly with the displaced refugees of Syria, of the Syrian civil war, I wonder to what extent he's going to be looked upon to facilitate this era that we live in. We really live in, it feels like we live in an era of displaced peoples having to find new homes, refugees, and it seems like Guterres' skill set and experience, particularly with the UN, makes him uniquely qualified to bring that type of focus to the overall approach and purpose of the UN. But when you think about it in context of history, really there have always been these periods of mass migrations for different reasons, whether it be droughts, extreme droughts, whether it be plagues, whether it be war or whatever. So you can, if you look through history, you'll see mass migrations just throughout world history. And it does feel like right now it's extremely problematic time because of the migrations due to war. And I guess you can't really call it migration so much as people who are refugees, who are forced out, who are displaced. So it's very interesting to see what Guterres will bring to the table in terms of getting these Syrian refugees, getting them new homes. And in our research and preparation for this, it's interesting when you consider the impact, right? The impact that refugees have on whatever nation accepts them. I believe we were talking about Jordan and how Jordan accepted so many, over 1 million refugees, and they have a population of about 6 million people. And so if you think about the impact of, let's say, the Syrian civil war, which it looks like, particularly with the United States walking away from the table, it looks like there's going to be an even longer continuation of that war. If it continues on long enough for refugees not to move back or to become permanent, to be in those nations permanently, the impact that culture now has, and is the impact that is felt is very significant. I mean, you really change the entire shape and face of a nation when you have, like in Jordan, for example, 1.6 million refugees and a population of 6 million people. So just looking at those dynamic trends, and you can look throughout history. I mean, there's an entire field of study about this where you can track the cultural changes that took place because of mass migrations for whatever reason, because of large refugee movements, because of war, etc. So this would be interesting to see what Guterres brings to the table, particularly within his purview over 10 years between 2005 and 2015, being the head of the UN Refugee Agency.